Hi, my name is Gordy Hogue, and this is Community Connections. Each of us have stories that help us understand each other and help to bring our community closer together. I have been very fortunate to have met many interesting people. People who've had a positive, profound impact on our community and far beyond. People who've had incredible life experiences and fascinating stories. Community Connections is about these people and about their stories. I'm sure you'll enjoy meeting these amazing people as much as I have. Thank you. Please enjoy.
Welcome to Community Connections. My name is Gordy Hogue, and today's guest is a man who has given countless hours to the betterment of our community. He's the co-founder of the Canadian Open Sandcastle competition, who over a period of 8 years brought 1 million people to our community and gave us a profile around North America, if not around the world. He is the co-founder, on the board, have been on the board of the Peace Arch Curling Club, chaired the Peace Arch Hospital Foundation's major fundraiser, on the board of Coast Foundation, Housing for People with Mental Illness. He has been a fundraiser for the Surrey YMCA, the Fraser Valley Cancer Center. He's been the mayor of White Rock, and he with his partners have founded a major accounting firm in our community, Kirstein, Nadig and Vance, just to name a few of the many accomplishments of this wonderful fellow. Welcome, Tom Kirstein.
Thank you, Gordy. I'm just trying to keep up to you in this community. You had a head start, though.
Yeah, I've been here a little bit longer, I guess, just by product of birth.
There's quite a difference in the arrival, those that arrived here in 1973 and those that grew up here. There's always been quite a different feeling amongst those that gained a real good feel of White Rock from elementary school and high school and stayed very, very close. And when you come to the community in 1973, like I did, when there was only one blinking light in town and a dirt sidewalk on one side of the road and no Semiahmoo Mall, it's a different feeling, but you sure understand why the children that grew up here and stayed here like you did have stayed, and why we arrived finally in White Rock. It's a great town. You know why you come back every time you go traveling somewhere. You know why you're back here.
Absolutely true. And our growth has been, there have been so many people who've come and sort of believed and understood that and become major contributors and understood that sense of community that somehow has been able to manage. And you were one of those people who picked up on that right away and became a part of it. So tell us a little bit about growing up and how you ended up coming to this community.
Well, short story, I guess. I grew up in East End, Vancouver. My grandpa built the house that I grew up in. He built it in about 1911. It's still there today. My mom and dad drove out here in a 1951 Austin, bring the 4 kids to go out and play in the sand. And we built our sandcastles and protected them from the tide coming in every weekend, or every sunny weekend. Was probably every second weekend when you get a low tide. And we'd go collecting their beer bottles on the beach and take them in for our 2-cent deposit or whatever the return was in those days. And as a result of coming out here, my uncle played piano in the Silver Moon way back when, and had a strawberry field up past the old funeral home, probably would be about 18th Avenue, where his strawberry field was now, and probably about 146th. So we had a good feel for White Rock way back when, in the 50s, when you didn't have the tunnel to come through. You went the old route and came the way of all the New Westminster residents that had a second home out in Crescent Beach and in White Rock. So we had a really good feeling for White Rock when we were kids. And after university, Lorne Ginther was my brother-in-law at that point in time. Lorne's still practicing at age 84, having a great time. Can't leave the business. I think he learned from Ken Gray way back when. Ken retired finally when he was 83 or so. So Lorne has now surpassed that. But Lorne said, why don't you come out and give White Rock a try? And certainly White Rock had a good feel from way back when. So we did. We bought a small accounting bookkeeping practice of Len Carlson. And by the time I retired, there were 9 or 10 partners and 105 staff, and now they've gone on to join MNP. Still a very successful accounting firm, and I think, you know, that's part of my life has been, when you retire, make sure whatever you're leaving is in a better place than it was when you came. That was probably an old lesson my dad taught me and mom taught me. When you get to a campfire campsite, you make sure it's cleaner when you leave than when you arrived. And it's part of life. It's ingrained, and I think I've done that all the way through.
So you're talking about the influence of your parents in terms of that. How do you think that interpreted itself into the many, many contributions you've made to this community and the many, many areas you've gone into in terms of fundraising and the boards you've sat on, the way you've carried yourself, running for council, being the mayor? All of those things take a fair amount of passion and a set of principles that seem to have grown out of youth. So how would you say that came out of your upbringing or your values or reflected in those?
Yeah, I don't think I stand alone, Gordy. You're a fine example of that too. And when you look at the contributions your dad made to this community, and contribution of the land that started off the superfluity shop on Vidal and Victoria Avenue, the multiple births he attended and watched with glee all the kids that grew up in this town that he had assisted to come into this world. You know, I think you could name many, many, many people in White Rock that have done that. And it's perhaps our generation, the parents that went through the Depression, the parents that went through the war, great lessons that we were given in life. The old, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. You know, those types of things become ingrained when you're children, and I certainly feel like it's essential that we pass on our knowledge, our abilities, our efforts to make the area around us a better place to live. So all I've done, I've never attacked anything with purpose. I've always fallen into something, it seems. And part of that is just that you're willing to volunteer. You're able to go to the meetings, and as soon as you go to a meeting around here, you're on the board. You know, it's you've learned that, and I've learned that, and I think it's essential that we all know that if you're going to go to a meeting, you better be able to willing to put up your hand, contribute, and once you've done that, people are going to ask you to do more. So that's okay. That's okay. And I've had support all the way through my firm. When I became alderman and then mayor, my firm came to the table and the partners took over and helped out immensely. You recall those years. I think the first year I was mayor was about 60 hours a week, and by the fourth year we had it fairly under control, and I was down to about 15 hours a week, and it was time for you to take over. So hopefully I left something behind, and you probably worked twice as hard after I left and then diminished it over the 10 years that you were mayor. So it's you know, it's just culture, and maybe it's the East End Vancouver need to do well. Maybe it's the introvert by nature that is forced into these situations, and a little bit of the extrovert comes out. And some of it is you just get damn mad at somebody that did something wrong, so you take over. You want to take over. So maybe a fair share of each of those.
Yeah, so I think that that resonates well in terms of growing up and the connections that you make, and then how do you try to live out those, and somewhat serendipitously as opposed to something that's really well thought out. It's just something that sort of grows into your nature, I think. And I think that's what you're reflecting in terms of how
you know, it's simple. It's simple things, Gordy. It's learning how to curl when I was 13, and we were very, very proficient curlers, and did some great things. But I learned in the 6 years of teenage curling that it wasn't about you, it was about your team, and that extended all the way through council, the boards I've been on, the accounting firm. It's never about you, it's about the team. And I think looking back on that, curling had a huge role to play in that. Chess when we were kids, grade 5 and 6, 7, playing chess. You learn some of the strategic moves and planning out 4 or 5 steps ahead in your life. And the chess players today are probably way more number of steps and alternatives than that. But I was keep it simple. And but yeah, reflecting on life as a child, and looking back to those years, you realize the impact each of those events and successes you had as a child play as you get into real world.
So as you've retired from the accounting firm, and how are you maintaining your sense of passion and intrigue and interest? How are you filling your time now to fulfill some of those innate desires that you have to be involved and to be engaged and to support things?
It's 13 years now that I've retired or been retired, so it's moved on, and I haven't had a lot of interaction with the old accounting firm. You drop by and say hi every once in a while, but they've gone on to bigger and better things, and that's good. From my point of view, I've assisted after retirement with the hospital in Partners in Caring program, where we raised $25 million out of a $32 million goal to enhance many of the, we were looking at emergency ward, not, that's just getting done now. So that was one of them. The MRI, the maternity ward was huge. The Center for, give me a name, Gordy.
Center for Active Living?
Center for Active Living, thank you. That was a part of those fundraising efforts. So, that was a couple of years, and with the help of many people in White Rock, we were able to put some good dollars on the table and enhance the planning for future years as well. When they first came to me and said, we need you to help raise 10 million, I said, I suspect you already have those 10 million in mind. We better come up with some more projects to make this a much bigger fundraising effort in town, because the town deserves it, needs it, and will contribute if they see the need. And we created the need. We showed what those events were. We advanced the cause of maternity. We advanced the cause of the MRI. We built that up, and as a result, people that would have otherwise given $100,000 gave $250,000, or one. There were very significant donations without naming names. We were quite successful in that. That was a couple of years. Mary Lou and I have traveled extensively. We're probably a little under 100 countries that we visited now. And again, you always know why you come back here. We have 10 grandchildren, all of them advancing towards marriage and university and getting out of high school. And there aren't many young ones left now. The youngest are 11, and the oldest 25, getting married in May. So there's life moves on. We try and stay involved with all of them. And other than that, there's many friends, relatives, connections that we like to make sure we're close to in these retirement years. We have a place down in Mexico. We get down there for 3 or 4 months a year, barring COVID. And we always try and make sure we visit other friends around the world too. And we've had a very nice life and some great travels.
When you talked about the fundraising for the hospital and having to define the need and frame it, I think one of the things that you did do was ensure that we maintained a maternity in the hospital, because at one point they were talking about taking maternity out of Peace Arch. I think that the initial fundraising back then, those days, ensured that we did maintain maternity, and the hospital has obviously grown thanks to a lot of the work that you did there.
Well, I think we all understand the need at the hospital. We also understand that the health authority needs to make sure there's a certain level of demand and care as a result, and quality of physician, quality of environment, quality of building, quality of equipment, in order to meet the needs of a community. And again, if you go back to see what Al did in this community and assisting the auxiliary and Kay, your mom, getting involved in the Goodwill group at the hospital back in 1947. There are some really significant contributors to the hospital. I have to say that our campus at the hospital is, I don't know what now, 22 acres, 25 acres. There isn't one speck of land at the campus of the hospital, Peace Arch Hospital, that has ever been purchased by the government. It's all been donated or purchased using donations. When I got on the board in 1974 or 1975, they had finished building a buying program under the leadership of Bob Hassel and Daryl Thompson. We can't forget the contributions that Daryl Thompson has made to this community. Daryl decided that we needed a larger campus, and in order to do that, we get out into the community, we raise money, and we start buying up land, and the lots around the hospital were bought up anywhere between $2,500 a lot and $25,000 a lot. When I got on the board in 74, 75, we were buying them for about $50,000 a lot. They went up as high as 250 back then to build the campus that we have today. And you know, that's this community recognizing need. Without the community, without the auxiliary back in those days, our hospital, we'd be going either to Panorama Ridge or we'd be going to Langley for care. And we have a hospital that's second to none in providing help at a local community level. Obviously, there is time when brain trauma, heart specialties are needed, but we have those close by at Royal Columbian and at Surrey. So when the hospital comes asking if you can help, you say yes. You know, it's just, it's not something you target. It's just something that it's your responsibility to do.
So what are the things that you're most proud of in terms of this community, and certainly the myriad of contributions that they made? Do some things stand out in terms of your mind, in terms of, is it the hospital, or is it the more broad-based issues that you've been involved in? What, and with city council, or you accomplished a lot on city council and as mayor as well? Do some of those things stand out?
I hold my head up high and walk around this city. I just love it. And, you know, I don't know if anything particularly stands out. One of the things that I'm very, very proud of is the growth of KNV and now MNP. And as we grew, we saw it as our duty to provide scholarships to the local schools. Each of the local schools had a scholarship, which many times ended with that person going into an accounting career and joining us again, which was fabulous. But as I left, we had an intake every year of about 20 to 25 students. And knowing that they have learned from the firm, become managers or partners, or moved on into industry or their own accounting practices, you know, it's a tremendous responsibility, taking a student out of university, making sure that they receive additional education and go on to support their family. It probably doesn't matter what I was involved with, whether it's a local board, a strata board, a fundraising effort. If there was ever an issue with an individual because of family, we always said family came first. Didn't matter what you were doing, family always came first. So that I think we just look back with pride and understand that we did it right, and our children have grown, our grandchildren have grown, and the community has grown as part of our contributions. And we didn't do those contributions alone. We did it as a team. I mean, I'm not talking about just Mary Lou and I, and Mary Lou's contributions, over 40 years of contribution to the hospital auxiliary. The teamwork was all the people in the community, all the people at our firm, all the people on the boards. It was always a team. It was never an individual effort. And I look back on that with great pride. And
so you should. Now, looking at where our community is today, and looking at the growth in Metro Vancouver, and knowing the limitations we have with an ocean on a couple of sides of Metro, and mountains to the north, and to the east. Where do you see our community? Where do you think the future is going, not just for Metro, but more importantly for our community in terms of being able to maintain the growth that seems to be necessary, the challenges that we have, and seeing how other areas, metro areas, have developed in other parts of the world based on your traveling? What do you think the best future for our community is? What will that look like in 50 or 100 years from now? If you had your wish and the values that you've just laid out, if those values can be reflected, what do you see this community looking like then?
You know, that's such a hard question, and I've learned over the years that there are specialists in this. And I look back on the planners in Vancouver and planners at the provincial level. They have had some fabulous ideas. Locally, I think the barn door is now open. We have high rises. We were asked by the GVRD to, or Metro Vancouver, whatever they're called now, to increase our population, and every municipality has that responsibility and increase the population base in their town. The high rises are here. I think they've been built with style, with grace, with, I would hope that they are going to serve the people that are now living in those high rises. There are view corridors there. I would like to have seen maybe more park and more pedestrian orientation, and maybe as they develop a little bit more, I'll see that the advisory design panel, the councils, the staff have done their job to make sure that this is a pedestrian friendly city. I would like to always ensure that parks are maintained, that we have a mix of population here, that we take on a responsibility for those with disabilities, that we take on a responsibility to educating our students, our children, and make sure they have a chance in this life that is not given to everyone around the world, not readily in any case. So there's soft goals. I don't know if I have any hard goals. I think there's some very difficult decisions coming forward to White Rock City Council, and I'm sure that they have great strategic planning sessions in looking at tax reductions. I'd hate to compare, I can compare my taxes here to what I would have paid in Vancouver with a similar value house. I think White Rock's got some things to do before the revolt happens. And right now, people in White Rock seem to be satisfied, so the revolt isn't nearby. But there are some decisions around policing. As Surrey goes to its private force, what's White Rock going to do? I know we call for an emergency or a soft call to the police now, and it goes through Surrey. But there are decisions to be made there. I became mayor over a debate at a joint White Rock Surrey council meeting where we discussed combining the fire halls and giving an opportunity to our firefighters to advance through the ranks, given more challenges than might be offered here. The White Rock utility's been taken over by the city now, but how many other things are like that here? Lots of decisions. I'm old enough now to know that I don't know it all, but I know that, and I hope that all the politicians are there for long-term strategic purpose, not for getting reelected. Those are maybe some of my pet thoughts right now. But and as we grow, unfortunately, we're always going to be an attraction to the youth that have the hot cars. Right now, it seems like we can drive down the street with popping the car in first gear all the time and creating noise on motorcycles. And us old folk now are going to complain a little bit more about those things. And little things like that. But strategically, I think we're going to be a city of high rises in the town center, which is, to me, fine if we have view preservation, if we have space between the high rises. I never really did like the 3- and 4-story walk-up type apartments where they're block on block. And if you go to Paris, you see them as 5- and 6-story buildings. But when you walk down the street, there's no view corridor, there's no view, there's no no great amenities for that. So with planning, high rises can be okay. Do it carefully. Provide the view corridors to the hundreds and hundreds of people that are going to live in those, and make sure there is plenty of pedestrian orientation and park space available as we increase the density, so that we all maintain some, again, community feel. Very, very important to me. But I'm not in council. I'm not elected. I'm not going to be elected. Gordy, you seem to be retired now. I don't know whether you're taking another run at it, but those, what do you see? What's your biggest number one concern?
Well, when you talk about those values, one of the things I remember is, I think the first, you mentioned France and Paris, that the first high rises were in France. And the person who had designed and described them said it's so we can save land instead of spreading out, we're going to build higher. And he said it was a big mistake that I made, because all of a sudden they filled all the land up with high rises as well. So I think your comment about how do we protect those corridors is also important, that if we're going to have that type of height, we've got to maintain open spaces and places for people to enjoy and to play and get in touch with the ground, rather than making everything concrete and blocking those views that are so open to us.
Yeah, the first time I went to Paris, I was very disappointed. I was very pleased when you walk along the Seine and when you walk around the Eiffel Tower, but when you walk down the back streets and saw the just endless 5- and 6-story buildings with no view to the sun, it was disappointing. The planning was disappointing to me.
Yes, indeed. So what is that part of your your message that you would give to somebody who's planning or going into counseling or going to be on being an elected position in the next 25 years? What's the message if somebody 50 years from now is watching your comments as they wander through the museum and see you're talking away? What's the message you'd like to be giving to them?
I never went on further in politics, and part of that was, I think the other parties are sometimes right. I could join a party, but I'd probably be kicked out of caucus because I would see that the other fellow had good ideas as well. So, and I'd be looking for some sort of reconciliation, some meeting of common goals. The only message I'm going to part with in that is, know your community, know your province, know your country. Do not listen to all the people, because if you ask the people if they want to be taxed, they will say no. Municipal government is the best government we have. They provide the parks, the sewer, the fire, the policing that affects you in your daily lives. You have to fund that, fund it responsibly. In the provincial level for education and health, fund that properly too, and federally fund what we want to do and take care of our community, our immigration, our people in the best way possible. But for example, in our COVID environment, where we increased $343 billion annual spending, wouldn't that have been a great time to come in and say, but it comes with responsibility, that it comes with a need to move our GST from 5% to 7.5% or 8%, and we will rebate for the people that can't afford that. We will increase our GST rebates, but we need to fund this $343 billion. We need a greater tax rate on capital gains. We need to make sure people are paying their fair share. We can't let foreign corporations come in and not contribute to our community, which is Canada. So what do I have to say to politicians? Don't be there to get reelected, be there to do the right thing. And I don't think there is any difference in that statement, municipally, provincially, or federally, or on your strata council.
Absolutely. Very well said. And I think that's a great message for not just the future, but a great message for today in terms of the responsibilities that exist in those positions.
I think very important. Gordy, you asked if I was proud of anything else. I would, if you have the time, I want to share a little bit with you and see if I can share the screen and show a few pictures of Sandcastle Day.
Oh, perfect.
Let's just see if I can show you a few. Is that coming through okay?
Yes, it is. That's perfect. Nice to know.
This is 1983's winner, Joe Mays, who came to White Rock as a result of hearing from Hawaii that we had the World Open Sandcastle competition. We saw him in our travels in Brighton Beach and outside of London a few years later. And the following year he died shortly after he competed in the Harrison competition. A great guy. And I don't think much can be said about having people on Marine Drive. If you want to take a look at those pictures, you see the number of people that we had. We had 100,000 or 120,000 people on the beach each Sandcastle Day. And I guess proof of the pudding is taking a look at things like White Rock Minor Hockey that sold 30,000 bars of ice cream in a 4-hour period before the tide came in and took it all away. We had the Village Montessori volunteers running the buses and taking 8,000 people up and down the hill. We had 8,000 people on the pier at any one time. We had Brian Mulrooney come into town. We had ABC News in 1985 wanting to come and shoot from New York. They came and we were able to get them out of town by having the RCMP take them with their film across the border on the water, put them on a float plane, get them to Seattle so that they could send back the news of the Canadian Open Sandcastle competition on ABC National News. That was they originally had a minute scheduled. They flown back to New York after they saw the great family fun free event that it was and said, we need a minute 45. They were given that. And the footage was phenomenal when it showed up. We were in the Smithsonian magazine. White Rock became front and center from that. And you could say development started happening and quality development and attention got given to White Rock for future development as a result of that. But honestly, I think it coincided with the expansion of the water and sewer services in South Surrey. So, timing's everything. But that one event I'm very proud of. And you were at the first inaugural meeting at Sawbuck's Pub right after the mayor told us that it was not our responsibility to promote the city. 5 of us went up and 2 of those people recently died. Baird Blackstone was one and Elio Azara was one. But Chip Barrett, you and I and the 2 of them went up and decided what we were going to do for this town in order to promote it. And the Canadian Open Sandcastle competition was born the next day with $4,000 raised for prizes by 1 o'clock. And that weekend or the following weekend, we did a trial run in order to determine rules, regulations, size of castle, how many people could help, how many children could be involved in teams, different types of categories that we would have. We had the Blue Angels fly over one year, just 26th of August, 1979 was the first one. And it attracted 40,000 people. The PNA attendance went down that day, roughly by that same amount. In future years, it blossomed after that to 100 to 120,000. We heard estimates of 200,000 people on the beach at any one time, but that's people coming and going. And if you take a block in the sand, you can't count to 120,000 people. But when 30,000 bars of ice cream are sold in a 4-hour period, you had a crowd. So we're very, very, very proud of that. And unfortunately, it couldn't continue. You can't put on that type of event with 22 police officers in town that have to work 7 days a week and can't work 24 hours a day. So it was great. I think we were lucky. I think we probably escaped any big major injury or death through good planning and luck. And at the end of the 8-year run, we said, let's call it a day. And the city agreed. And I think it was for a good reason. it was a phenomenal event, family fun and free, but there are limitations to what you can do these days, and keep everyone under control and safe.
And it certainly brought a lot of positive attention to this community and in some ways put it on the map.
Yes,
As you say,
yes.
the growth that came after that. So congratulations to you and Chip in particular for all the work you did to make that happen.
Yeah.
Any final words you want to say, Tom?
I have some final words. I'm going to take you a little trip. I'm going to change the background here a little bit. Is it just showing up at the background, Gordy? Yeah.
Yes.
What I'm doing on the screen doesn't show, just the background changes.
No, yeah, your face stays in the middle of it though.
We have done a fair share of traveling in retirement, and Mont Saint Michel. We have seen Victoria Falls. We've gone to Porto in Portugal and down to Singapore. We've done various trips in Canada. I always thought we would maybe save Peggy's Cove and those things for later on when we couldn't afford medical care outside the country. But South Africa, we've been to Myanmar, fortunately in time before all the hassles are taking place today. And Tasmania, we didn't get out sailing, but we were close enough to the boats going by. We've been in Greece, we've been in France and Vimy and just Pamukkale, but you always know why you come home. You get back here from all those travels and you have a community that cares, you have people that care, you have a phenomenal, safe Canada that you know why you live here. It's family, it's community, it's scenery and safety, and we can all go elsewhere in the world and see what the people are doing. And the biggest thing you learn when you travel is that everybody in every country just wants to be free to educate their children, to grow their family, to become, let their family become independent. And unfortunately, as we get the politicians, various religious leaders involved, those people's lives get altered and put in danger. And but it's just overwhelming to me, all the different cultures, all the different people. Everybody is nice, smiling, forgiving and contributing in their own community. And I can't think of a better experience than traveling to put culture in its place, and to let us in Canada understand what a valuable country we have and how much everybody else in the world really just does the same thing we do. Educate the families, make everybody independent, grow old gracefully, and move forward. So through life. There's my lesson.
What a wonderful message and a perfect way to end. Thank you very much, Tom Kirstein, for all that you've done for our community and for those wonderful messages.
Thank you for joining us today on Community Connections. Please tune in to our next show as more amazing people share their wonderful stories. If you haven't already, please click on the red subscribe button below, right down there, and view our updates. Feel free to leave any thoughts or comments that you may have. We're always trying to do a better job of connecting this wonderful community. Thanks again for joining, and until next time, keep connecting. Thank you.